So yeah, welcome to the Rad Flower Hut. And here we only have the reddest flowers.
Venus flytraps and such.
Oh yes, right, sorry, I forgot. Yes, Yavin actually spent several years of his life getting a degree in his mother tongue, so he probably could actually figure that out in his head given a few minutes. Well, I'm glad you have such marketable skills. I mean, it's not like a freaking HTML script can do it in your place or anything. Oh, wait.
My mother is sort of afraid of all kinds of things.
Including anagrams.
She actually refuses to use public bathrooms because what if there is flesh-eating bacteria on the toilet seats? Yeah.
Well, there you go. You never know, man. This time, I might be the one. It's like that poor Japanese guy who had got hit by meteors twice. And you just realize that, at a certain point, just life wasn't meant for you, basically.
There was also the guy who was struck by lightning 11 times.
Yeah, well, that actually, comes more down to having stupid habits like playing golf with brass clubs on a hilly golf course during lightning storms and stuff like that, or working on telephone poles in a storm. But I mean, getting hit by falling space objects, only 1 in 4 billion people die in this manner. And he gets hit once, survives, which is incredibly rare, and then gets hit a second time and dies. It's like God went, shit, I rolled badly on damage, can I get another attack?
By the way, Arthur,
cool.
Another anagram of Arthur D. Wolf is Lewd Fart Hour. Should really be the name of the stream.
I was about to say, shit, doesn't that actually summarize pretty well what we tend to do? I'm lewd. And I fought really quietly without anyone noticing. Yeah, sounds about right. Lewd fought hour in the Rad Flower Hut. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Man, we are starting to drop viewers now. I can understand that. Too bad, because they will be missed the fun game we will be playing after this. This is just a test. Who will survive?
What will we be playing after this?
I have no idea, I'm just lying to make people stop leaving.
Oh.
My mother's great-great-grandfather was a fantastically wealthy plantation owner.
There you go.
They kind of fell in hard times after that whole emancipation thing.
Yeah. Man, that was really just a terrible, terrible thing, wasn't it? I mean, they just took all the job creators and hung them out to dry. And for what? Jeez. Freaking social justice activists. Why don't they think of the economy?
I think I also have ancestors from Alsace-Lorraine as well.
That is not terribly unusual, though.
Yeah.
At one point we all connect back to somewhere in Europe, most of us.
And
At least
I have
those of us are actually, Caucasian.
I also have relatives in Sweden, I think.
Which is also not very rare if you're American. We sent a shitload of people over to your little bit of soil there.
An uncle of mine did some kind of DNA genealogy test, and he found out that 98% of his DNA was from the British Isles. So, I don't know.
Probably related to the Irish on both father's and mother's side from the early 20th century or something like that.
My father insists that...
Actually, actually, we're pretty sure that it's all English because it's like we go back to like the colonial sort of like 1700s that far back. So I don't think we're Irish.
Fate worse than death, or what? What?
Oh,
Why? The lady
I'm also
does
partially
object
Irish.
too much, I think.
Yeah, but my father insists that some of his ancestors were Swedish nobility, and that my grandfather's second ex-wife sold off the family crest.
There you go.
Everybody thinks they're nobility.
My family was nobility, until all the males got themselves killed. That is pretty much what happened, because the family has we basically soldiers, and then at one point we basically ran out, because all of them got unlucky enough to get killed in the same war. And then there were only women left, and yeah. There you go. Kalila the unicorn. Hell yeah. Let's get on with it.
Several years after the death of William Forrest in 1837, his widow married Mr. Joseph Luxton, and when the Civil War broke out in 1861, she resided upon her plantation some few miles out from Memphis on the Raleigh Road. The oldest son by the second marriage was then 18 years of age and had for some months been employed as a clerk in one of the stores in Memphis, and had enlisted in the Confederate Army in one of the companies organized in that city. On a Friday afternoon, he appeared at his mother's home, clad in a neat-fitting new suit of Confederate gray, trimmed with gold lace and other fancy trappings. So much in fashion at the beginning of the year. And other fancy trappings, so much in fashion at the beginning of the war. His mother had some ideas of her own, which the younger generation deemed old-fashioned, but to which, despite criticism, she tenaciously adhered. Some of her neighbors said she was set in her ways. Among other eccentricities, she maintained that no meal was so good as that which was ground from corn raised on her own farm and shelled under her personal supervision, where she could see that none of the small faulty grains near the point of the ear were used. Every Saturday morning, bright and early, she would send one of her boys to mill with a sack of corn to be ground. As her son retired to his room that night, she said, "Joseph, I want you to get up early in the morning and go to mill with that sack of corn." She did not seem to take into consideration the fact that he was living away from home and was now a Confederate soldier.
But Mom, I'm in the army now. You mill that corn or I'm gonna smack you good. Okay. Jeez.
The young man did not respond to his mother's command, but went silently to bed, nonetheless determined not to soil his new soldier clothes by riding on a sack of meal. The mother belonged to that robust and enterprising type of housewife who believed in getting up before daylight and having everything ready for work by the time it was light enough to see. On weekdays, everybody on her farm had breakfast by candlelight. Next morning, as usual, everyone was called early, and all appeared to the table excepting the devotee of Mars. The old lady said to the negro servant who was waiting upon the table, "Tell Mr. Joseph to come to breakfast right away," and continued, as the servant went on the errand, "I am not going to put up with any city airs on this place." She then occupied herself in pouring out the coffee for those at the table, and, while so doing, the negro returned with a message from her impertinent offspring that he did not intend to go to mill. She might as well send one of the niggers with the corn. One who was present on this occasion says, when this message was delivered, she was just in the act of pouring out a cup of coffee, with the cup and saucer in one hand and the pot in the other, lifted several inches from the table. For a moment she seemed dumbfounded at such impertinence on the part of her son, and then, setting the half-filled cup in the coffee pot down, she arose from the table, told us to go on with breakfast, and asked us to excuse her, as she would return in a few minutes. She marched out into the yard, broke off 3 or 4 long peach tree switches, and went directly upstairs, pulled that 18-year-old warrior of hers out of bed, and gave him such a thrashing as to justify remembrance of it for the remainder of his life.
So it's exactly as I predicted. She did give him a smacking. Well done. Welp.
Trying to find another horse-related passage in Blood Meridian. I'm having a hard time.
Go ahead. Sadly, I have quite a few books in Reach, but a few of them that are in English don't really concern themselves much with horses, I think.
Except, of course, for the My Little Pony fanfiction compilation.
Oh yeah, and Fallout Equestria. I have all the volumes.
Oh god. Oh god. Oh, god.
Goodness.
Ugh.
The first time I saw the screenshot of the guy who actually got those self-printed, I had to laugh, because Jesus Christ. I mean, you reach a certain level when you've not only spent like 600 hours writing My Little Pony Fallout crossover fanfiction, but you're also spending hundreds of dollars of your own money to have it printed so you can have it in your bookcase. I mean, come on. Jeez. My father gave out a book once, by the way. Come to think of it. It's a great book. It's called My Life. And when you open the book, it's nothing but empty pages. Because by my life, it of course means your life, since you are the one who now owns the book, which means that it is supposed to be used as a journal.
How much did it cost?
I don't know how much he sold it for back in the day, but I mean, it was more of a, joke when he was a student, so I doubt it was very expensive. And I mean, it actually sort of said on the back that what it was about. And if you're stupid enough to buy a book without actually opening it and at least flipping through it a bit, then you pretty much deserve what you get.
With Arthur, that's how I got the life of General Nathan Bedford Forrest.
You just saw the covering and saw this badass Confederate general slashing down some Negro soldiers, and you just went, wow, I need that.
No, I just saw his fantastic beard.
Oh, yeah.
And then my sister and I agreed that, yes, we should buy this.
Ah, yes, the beard.
It's very nice.
He did indeed have a very nice beard. I can't argue with that. Much like Kuan Yu in ancient China, he was well renowned for his brilliant beard. God, I wish this was over already. Shit.
She made him get up and put on an old suit of farm clothes, which he had left at home when he became a city chap. The horse was already at the gate, and accompanying the prodigal son that far. She picked up the 2-bushel sack of corn, put it on the horse, and made him get up on top of it, and away he went to the mill. As she came back into the house, her eyes flashing and her face red with anger, and the exertion which the chastisement had called for, she said, "Soldier or no soldier, my children will mind me as long as I live."
Yeesh.
It is said that Joseph returned in due time with a meal, a wiser and probably a better son. Her influence over her children was great and unimpaired to the end. When her distinguished son was a lieutenant general, it is said that he was as docile in her presence and as obedient to her as if he were still a boy living under her roof. And no one could pacify him in his moments of anger or control him as could the mother whom he adored and the wife to whom he was always the loyal and devoted lover. Of the boyhood life of General Forrest, I have been able to obtain but little of interest which is reliable. Within recent years, there was living at Chapel Hill an aged lady, a Mrs. Putnam, who was well acquainted with the family of William Forrest. She remembered Bedford when he was a mere child and young boy, and lived a near neighbor to his father. She says the only peculiarity she could recall in him as a child was that at play he could make more noise, and when his mother was whipping him, could yell louder than any child in the neighborhood.
This, of course, happened with such frequency for all the children that she could keep track.
All of which conveys the idea that he had considerable spirit and excellent lungs.
That's one way to look at it, I suppose. When his mother beat him, he screamed louder than anyone. Good lungs on that boy, good lungs.
And that his Calvinistic Scotch mother had not forgotten the Bible injunction, that when the rod was spared, the child was spoiled. A playmate of Forrest in his earlier days, a Mr. McLaren, who died recently in Waco, Texas, says that even as a very young boy, Bedford gave unmistakable evidence of the great physical courage and indomitable will which became such marked features of his character as shown later in life. On one occasion, a number of children were sent to gather blackberries, which grew wild and in profusion along the fence corners and hedges in the surrounding country. In the course of their rambling through the dense patches of briars, they came suddenly upon a large rattlesnake. The rattling tail and angry hisses of which, as it was called to strike, frightened them so that they abandoned buckets and baskets and berries in a wild stampede for their homes. The panic, however, did not communicate itself to the future soldier. He shouted out to his companions to come back and help him kill it.
That boy's been raised right. Look, a small animal. Let's kill it.
It's a very large rattlesnake, Arthur.
Oh, like a 9 feet long rattlesnake with spikes on its back. It spits acid as its special attack. It would probably be the only snake which the forest would bother to actually fight. Other rattlesnakes just walks past and they cover before him.
This small detachment of young mankind did not seem to have confidence in his generalship, and on that occasion, and paid no attention to his orders. Single-handed, and it might be added left-handed, as he had in infancy developed this sinister preference, he undertook to battle with the enemy. The briars were so thick immediately about the venomous reptile that, as young Forrest approached, he could not, from a safe distance, attack with stones. Procuring a stick long enough to enable him to hit the monster and still keep out of reach of its fangs, as it would strike at him from the coiled position, he soon marched in triumph from the briar patch with his dead enemy looped over the stick with which he had destroyed it.
I have actually just found a passage in Blood Meridian concerning a snake and a horse.
Oh yeah. Well then, let's go for it.
Okay. They had but 2 animals, and one of these had been snake-bitten in the desert, and this thing now stood in the compound with its head enormously swollen and grotesque like some fabled equine ideation out of an Attic tragedy. It had been bitten on the nose, and its eyes bulged out of its shapeless head in a horror of agony, and it tottered moaning toward the clustered horses of the company with its long, misshapen muzzle swinging and drooling, and its breath wheezing in the throttled pipes of its throat. The skin had split open along the bridge of its nose, and the bones shone through pinkish white, and its small ears looked like paper spills twisted into either side of a hairy loaf of dough. The American horses began to mill and separate along the wall at its approach, and it swung after them blindly. There was a flurry of thumps and kicks, and the horses began to circle the compound. A small mottled stallion belonging to one of the Delawares came out of the remuda and struck at the thing twice, and then turned and buried its teeth in its neck. Out of the mad horse's throat came a sound that brought the men to the door.
Fucking horses.
Indeed.
Jesus Christ. That is harsh.
I actually learned something new this week.
About horses?
No, about Russia.
Oh.
Serfdom was in Russia in 1861.
Yup.
Oh, yeah. They love their serfdom.
2 years before the Emancipation Proclamation.
Well, you know, the thing is that they didn't have any slaves, so they needed serfs instead. And besides, Russia have always been like 100 years behind everyone else in terms of social development, so it's not really strange.
I always thought that the Entente was kind of hilarious. It just doesn't seem that much like France and Russia would get along that well.
They were far enough apart, so they probably didn't care too much. Just like a good game of diplomacy, you know, that no one actually cares too much for anyone. It's just a matter of who you hate the least at the moment.
Oh, I recently got Darkest Hour, which was a Paradox game that took place during World War I and World War II. I played in World War I as France, but it never actually became a world war. It was just Russia and France fighting Germany and Austria. And no one else got involved.
Which is how it should have ended, I was about to say. Everyone just stepping back and saying, guys, no. Just no. Okay. Can we skip this? Thank you. Horses.
How many more horses do we have to see?
Not too
I
many,
think
luckily.
probably at 11 or 12 more, probably.
More like 6 or 7, I think.
Oh, that's
Even that.
even fewer.
Because we are doing pretty well in regards to horses, actually. Oh goodness.
Even at so young an age, he, in common with all boys brought up in a frontier settlement, became an adept at horseback riding. Neither saddle nor bridle was necessary to the urchins, who practically lived upon the backs of these noble animals, which they bestrode with the skill and security of seat of Comanches. To ride with horses and mules back and forth to the fields in plowing time, or to the pastures on Sunday, or to take them to water when required, or to go on errands to the doctor in the nearest town, were occasions in which the younger male members of the family, with great enjoyment to themselves, became useful members of a backwoods community.
Goodness, man, try to pace yourself.
I think he's dead.
No, I'm fine. I think I need to take more than that, though. Yeah, I'll be back soon.
And then there were 2. The question is, which one of them is the murderer? Buddy Gribble or Arthur? Hint, it's me. But he doesn't know that yet.
Suppose.
Seriously, if you ever end up in a story like that, and it's just you and me left, let's be perfectly frank here. It's probably you, actually.
What? No. How dare you?
I'll kill you for
I've
that.
never murdered anybody in my life. I'll have you know.
A point of pride of his. I am yet to commit murder. A harsh life in Illinois, I was about to say.
I am kind of glad.
I was going to say, you're the one with all the muscles. You'd probably be more adept at murdering somebody.
I am incredibly adept at murder, you have no idea. I have experience with various martial arts, firearms, knives, swords, Anything, basically.
Magic.
Yes, exactly, magic. I also know how to tie ropes really well. I know all kinds of brilliant knots to tie people up. I studied chemistry, explosives.
I don't think that you really need such fancy things to murder, Arthur.
No, but it makes it more amusing.
Well, apparently you're an expert, Connor.
I-
Maybe you're the murderer.
Maybe it was
Oh,
you.
what's that?
But yeah, I am a strict adherent to the old adage of speak softly and carry a big stick.
Oh, my father just leaves hunting rifles and steak knives lying around.
And then you pick the banana. We've all seen Scary Movie. We know how this works.
Anyway,
Anyway, so how about that southerner?
oh, my sister sometimes speaks a bit oddly. Like,
Like she's a murderer?
no, but
Oh,
before I tell this story, I should probably explain something. I am absolutely terrified by insects. If it has 6 legs and an exoskeleton, just looking at it makes me sort of paralyzes me.
Go on.
bodyguard
so at
is
one point
punching up to the microphone. Yes. Continue.
So at one point I asked my sister to please get rid of a beetle that was frightening me. And then she just went, "Are
Existing.
you sure about this? What has been done cannot be undone." And I have no idea why she was talking like that. It's just a bit
Then
odd.
you learned.
Well, and then she just crushed the beetle.
And then stared you deep in the eyes. You caused this. It is on you.
Actually, she did that.
And then you said, thank God, because I hate bugs.
It's like Anton Chigurh at the end of No Country for Old Men.
I'm not terribly fond of insects either, actually. But I have this ongoing vendetta with wasps and hornets, because fuck those guys. That is also that is why I have made an alliance with the spiders.
I also really like spiders.
And honeybees.
Yeah.
With honeybees, you can almost like respect honeybees because you know that if they sting you, that they're gonna die. So they
Yeah,
obviously
that is
have a reason.
Yeah, that is
Defend
exactly
home.
my approach to it too. Basically, they give their lives to protect something. You can always respect that. But a wasp, it just says, oh hey, there's a human walking over there. I think I'm gonna sting him and die. Ha 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 ha! And then it flies off. And there you are, screaming and rolling on the ground and holding your face.
I am allergic to bees. And at one point when I lived in Arizona, I was just attacked by a swarm of bees.
Action time! Press A to avoid getting stung.
I just hid inside, and there were just dozens of bees beating themselves against the windows.
Come out to play, Dotai.
I got stung by a wasp on the inside of the ear once.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't even know how it got there.
The worst thing is that I have never actually been stung by a bee, wasp, or hornet, which means that I have no idea if I'm allergic or not. I never tested myself either. It might be that I'm basically having this tenuous relationship with them, and one day one will just sting me in the foot while I'm out walking in the summer and I'll just die. And I have no idea.
Oh, my father almost died because he got stung in the neck by a bee once.
This is why I always wear my bee suit whenever I go out.
Oh, and also, one time when I was still living in Arizona, he saw a rattlesnake. And then he just got into his truck and then ran it over.
Take this, you piece of shit.
And then he backed into it.
Just to make sure. Yeah. And here comes Frankenstein with the Did You Know of the Day again. Sweden only has one poisonous snake. Or rather, one species of poisonous snake. And it is also like the friendliest poisonous snake because it's incredibly scared of people and it has this very, very prominent black X pattern on its back, which means that if you see it at pretty much any distance, you can immediately recognize it. And it's non-lethal. In addition to that, when it bites in defense, so when it is terrified of a human and so on, it doesn't actually use its poison unless it's too young to have learned how to regulate its venom sacs. Which means that a bite from this one venomous snake is usually not even venomous.
It's a very friendly snake.
It is. Most animals in Sweden are actually fairly friendly in that regard.
And at one point when my father was...
on Earth.
Yeah, we're basically anti-Australia.